Hello, my name is Dhruva Jaishankar. I'm Executive Director of ORF America. Welcome to our annual year-end dinner. It's always a good sign to see people lingering, talking, meeting people they haven't seen for a long time. And that's precisely the kind of occasion that we were hoping to have to celebrate 3 years of our organization with our friends, colleagues, and well-wishers. I want to begin by acknowledging many of you who are here. Some of you have traveled extraordinarily far to be with us today. Earlier today, ORF America held its annual board meeting, and I'm grateful to our board of directors for their continued guidance and leadership. You'll be hearing from all of them later tonight, and these include ORF Chairman Sanjay Joshi, who has joined us here from India. Mr. Joshi is over there, yes. Former U.S. Deputy Secretary for Homeland Security, Jane Hull-Lute, who is our co-chair of our board. ORF President Samir Saran, who's a member of our board. Former Swedish Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Carl Bildt. Former Australian Foreign and Defence Minister Senator Maurice Payne. And Professor David Victor of the University of California, San Diego. In addition, I would like to acknowledge two members of ORF's Global Advisory Board who are here with us. Former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper, and Presidents of the Emirates Policy Center, Ebtissam El-Khatbi. We are grateful to have with us officials from the US government, including the Departments of State and Defense, the National Security Council staff, USAID, and staff from the US Congress. We also have members of the diplomatic corps, including from the embassies of India, France, Japan, Serbia, North Macedonia, Australia, Singapore, Israel, and Bahrain. A welcome also to corporate representatives, members of the press, and of course, fellow think tanks. And last but not least, many of our partners with whom ORF America has collaborated over the past several years, including E3G, the Asia Group, the Japan Bank for International Cooperation, and the US-India Business Council. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but as any social media influencer would tell you, a video is probably worth a few million. So rather than hear me ramble on, here's a short video about ORF America and our journey.
It's a very challenging time in the world. Climate change, technology developments, all of these things cross borders and affect everyone. Ideas can't just come from the wealthy and the powerful. They have to come from everyone. People want fresh ideas, and it's time to bring in new voices.
ORF America was established in 2020 with the intention of being in some ways a bridge between policy discussions in the United States, in India, and around the world. We have a really unique identity as an American organization that has an Indian affiliation and has some kind of operation in almost every continent around the world.
ORF America is focused on a number of issues: security and defense, climate and energy, technology, and economic development. And we do a number of really dynamic and important conversations convening around the world, as well as produce research on those topics.
ORF America is uniquely positioned to bring the lessons of India's development model to a global audience.
We have hundreds of millions of people coming out of poverty, a new middle class, a new consumer class that is emerging. And they have their own demands and their own requirements and their own wants. And part of, I think, what we need to be doing more in the policy world is trying to address those challenges.
Our goal is to give a voice to the developing world that has not traditionally been represented in a lot of conversations.
ORF America is a US-Indian organization and focused on the bilateral relationship. But we go much broader than that and focusing on the Global South, bringing in voices from Latin America, from the Middle East, from Africa.
We're in a moment of flux and uncertainty. We see the clean energy transition accelerating. Renewables are as cheap as they've been historically. But on the other hand, we've seen setbacks from the pandemic, and especially in parts of Africa as well as other developing regions, we're seeing people losing access to electricity and energy.
There is a huge amount of change going on in the way we lead our lives. More and more our lives are online. But what does that mean? And especially in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, there is a need to understand these things together.
We are working with a range of partners in government, civil society, and industry through a series of global convenings, trying to find answers to pressing questions.
It's remarkable that in the first few years of our establishment, we've really created a name for ourselves here in Washington, D.C., and abroad as well.
ORF America's work stands out because we have those connections to India and the developing world that I think many other institutions in Washington don't have.
The fact that, we're positioned here in Washington gives us a unique opportunity to bring new voices into the conversation.
In my mind, a think tank is ultimately about its people. It's about its scholars, its staff, our affiliates, and we have distinguished fellows.
Young professionals are incredibly important to the policy landscape, and what we try to do here at ORF America is get them involved in the conversation with some of the heavy hitters here in DC.
This organization is going to grow as the work that we're doing becomes even more important.
We're a young organization, we're dynamic, we're energetic, and I think the objective will be to constantly strive to create something new, and that, I think, is ORF America. Thank you. As you saw, ORF America was set up during the coronavirus pandemic. And in just a couple of years since, we've seen major geopolitical developments in Ukraine and the Middle East, burgeoning trade and technology competition between the world's two biggest economies, and major economic and energy transitions. Over the past 18 months, we've ramped up our convening in Washington, D.C. on these issues, broadened our internship program, and enhanced our global presence. We've organized or co-organized policy conferences in 17 cities in 11 countries on 5 continents. And our experts have contributed research and commentary to our own publications, but also to peer-reviewed journals and scientific journals, as well as newspapers and magazines around the world. We now have 12 full-time staff, and I want to briefly introduce them. Most of you will know some of us, but few would know all. And if my colleagues, again, would please raise their hands to identify themselves. First, our Chief Operating Officer, Sharon Sterling. Senior Fellow for Technology, Dr. Andreas Kuhn, who's joined us from California. Senior Fellow for Economic Policy, Dr. Anand Mukherjee. Fellow for Energy and Climate Policy, Dr. Shayak Sengupta. Senior Program Manager for our Cyber Policy Program, Annalene Rogeman. I'll lump the rest of you together. Program Managers, Natalie Boyce, Sadiq Amini, and Jeff Bean. And our program assistants, Amar Nainar, Medha Prasanna, and Yasmin Ghosh. Last but not least, I don't want to forget our distinguished fellow, Udaybir Das, who joined us after a long career in central banking and the IMF. Ours is a small but growing team, hailing not just from India and the United States, but also from Switzerland, Belgium, Afghanistan, Brazil. And that's a living reflection of our international identity. With that, it gives me great pleasure to invite Ambassador Sripriya Ranganathan, Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy of India to the United States, to share a few words on the India-US partnership and its increasing global relevance. Ambassador Ranganathan was previously India's envoy to South Korea, and after joining the Indian Foreign Service in 1994, served in Turkey, Myanmar, and Hong Kong, amongst other places. Ambassador, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dhruva. Friends from the US and from India alike, and I see so many familiar faces from India. It's great to be here with you this evening. and to be part of this, this event being organized by ORF. I have been asked to speak about India-US cooperation on global issues primarily, and I will do my best to squeeze this, though there's a lot that's happening, I'll do my best to squeeze this into the 10 minutes that I've been given. It is a good time for us. This opportunity has helped me also in terms of gathering my own thoughts. It's a good time when we are coming up to the end of the year to reflect and to get a sense of what we have achieved through the year and what we have in store for the year to come. In many ways, the year just passed has been phenomenal in the India-US partnership. Prime Minister Modi's visit in June, President Biden's visit to India in September, and the whole range of ministerial engagements that we had through the years have thrown up lots of new ideas, lots of new initiatives, especially in the trade and tech-related areas. If we just look at the intensity of interaction over the past few weeks, that will give you a sense of just what all of us at the embassy are going through. We had the India-US CEOs Forum, at which 27 top CEOs from the two countries participated. PDNSA John Feiner was in India just last week. The Commerce and Industry Minister of India was in San Francisco, and we are looking forward to the visit of USTR Catherine Tai to India later early in January. I think the message from all this is very clear. The two governments are fully committed to growing this partnership. Our bilateral relationship, as well as our cooperation on global issues, is growing significantly and has really become a force for the global good. Be it in technology or defense, energy or education, space or semiconductors, we are collaborating closely in all areas. I'll just focus on a few of these to give you a flavor of what we are hoping to do and achieve over the coming months and years. As the world begins to think more deeply about global supply chains and emerging technologies, it becomes important for like-minded countries to come together and work on the rules of the road for the coming decades. India and the US are not only working on what exists today, but also on what we want to frame for the time to come. Just this year, we had a formal launch of the Initiative on Critical and Emerging Technology, where we are talking about telecommunications, semiconductors, quantum, AI, critical minerals partnerships, collaborating on Open RAN, and so on. Progress has been made in a large number of these verticals, and where the governments have stepped up, the private sector has also stepped up, and we have seen significant investments in both directions. There have been announcements by Micron, Lam Research, Applied Materials, and AMD for investments in India. And Indian companies are also increasing their presence in the US. The most recent was Epsilon Carbon's commencement of work on its facility in North Carolina. Another area of promise and deep engagement, healthcare. As the world saw during the recent pandemic, one has to be mindful of completely unforeseen black swan events. We have to anticipate them to the best of our ability, and when faced with unforeseen adversity, we have to bring to bear the best that we all offer to tackle them. India and the US are very well placed for deeper collaboration in health and pandemic preparedness, including to secure pharmaceutical supply chains. The recent launch of the US-India Cancer Dialogue is a big step in that direction, and we are anticipating great outcomes. This cooperation has been built on very strong foundations. The development of the Rotavac vaccine against the rotavirus is one such example of where our partnership has actually delivered tangible benefits to the world. Energy and climate change, another area of cooperation. This has been an area of focus both bilaterally and at fora such as the G20. This year, India and the US, along with the other G20 countries, launched the Global Biofuels Alliance during the Leaders Summit. We are already working together on the US-India Strategic Clean Energy Partnership for Climate Action and Finance Mobilization Dialogue, and as well as the International Solar Alliance. The message that has come out of the recently concluded COP28 is that there has to be much more focus on renewables, and India is really leading the charge as far as bringing about the largest energy transition program in the world. As we have reiterated at COP28, we will reduce emissions intensity by 45% by 2030 and increase the share of non-fossil fuels in our energy mix to 50%. We will also continue to press forward towards the goal of net zero by 2070. We have highlighted the importance of robust mechanisms to finance climate change transition, and in this context, we look forward to building on the partnerships that we have crafted with the US. Most recently, during President Biden's visit to India for the G20 summit, we announced the US-India Clean Green Transition Fund, which is $1 billion at the moment, but we believe that this will be the trigger for a much larger fund which will be available for us to put our money where our mouth is as far as climate mitigation is concerned. Moving on to defense, our ties have evolved from a simple buyer-seller relationship to one of co-production, co-development, and co-manufacturing. Defense industrial collaboration is an area of focus, and some of the companies that are present in this room will tell you about all that is going on, all the ideas that we are exploring. We've also tried to bring the startups into the frame, and the India-US IndusX is a new forum that we have crafted to allow the startups to come center stage as far as defense and space is concerned. We have intensified our exchanges in terms of service-to-service interaction and collaboration. The joint exercises that we have launched. Most recently, Vajra Prahar, a special forces exercise, has been concluded, and Yuddha Abhyas just a few weeks earlier. Friends, we cover a lot of these themes, amongst others, in our plurilateral and multilateral cooperation as well. India and the US work deeply within the Quad framework, a grouping that has grown by leaps and bounds in a very short period of time. 5 leader-level interactions have taken place so far, and we hope very soon that we will be able to schedule the next one in India once we get the leaders' time. We are also working together within the I2U2, the IMEC corridors, the IPEF, and other forums. These are just a few examples, and the idea is really to give you a sense of the extent to which the India-US partnership has matured and has allowed us to bring all these elements onto the table. There is truly no area that we are not willing and able to talk to each other about. The intent amongst our political leaders and the coming together of all our stakeholders, public, private, companies, think tanks, industry, and the diaspora, has allowed us to see very sharply what my minister said when he was here a short while ago, that we have moved from an era of dealing with each other to an era of working with each other. I'm very excited about the coming year and all that we will hopefully achieve together. Thank you all so much for your attention.